Time to show you guys the new Red Eye Garage project.
Let's just stop right there. If you watched my last video, it was titled, I just bought a weird Jeep. But I did some research after filming this video and found out I actually just bought a fire truck. Check this out.
If you look at the door in just the right light, you're able to see some old fire company lettering, and did a little bit of Googling, and I found out some fun history. After a little Googling, I found out that this Jeep was purchased by the Lake Harmony Volunteer Fire Company in Pennsylvania. It's listed on the historical portion of their website as being purchased in 1964 as a John Beam high-pressure fog truck. After a little more Googling, I found some more information on the John Beam converted FCs. So this gives you an idea of what it might have looked like. I couldn't find a picture of this exact Jeep, but here is an FC 170. That's the long wheelbase dually version. And after scrolling down a little farther, I found what most likely would have looked exactly like what this truck would have been. So it's an FC 150 short wheelbase high pressure fog system truck. So that would explain the PTO that it has with the belt drive. Probably drove a high pressure pump. And here's some pictures from other fire departments of what it might have looked like. One other small detail I noticed was those fog lights, and my Jeep still has the holes in the roof where that siren and light would have been mounted. This is a 1958 Willys FC 150. If you're not familiar with these, FC means forward control. It's probably one of the weirdest and one of the more rare Willys Jeep models. They call them a forward control because you sit right on top of the axle and all the controls are forward of everything basically. So the engine's about right here, so the pedals, the steering, everything is over the front axle. In 1958 they came out with the wide track version of the FC. That's what this is. So a narrow track would have been prior to 58. They used basically a CJ5 setup, so frame, axles, and engine were from a CJ5. This is a wide track, so they widened it and put Dana 44s in the front and rear. I think it's about 6 inches wider overall, and it has a much heavier spring pack. So those are, I think they're 2.5-inch springs, and they're outboard of the frame. So you can see they have brackets on the front and rear, making it a little bit wider and a little bit heavier. And then the Dana 44 axle up front is beefier, and they just look better because the narrow tracks looked funny because the wheels were inset of the body by a lot, and I guess they just found it wasn't the most the best truck. So they're still nose heavy. They added counterweights in the back of the frame so that on downhills or when you hit the brakes or lift the snowplow, the back wheels wouldn't come off the ground. So they tried. Still a lot of design flaws, but it made for a very neat and unique, fun little vehicle. So as I mentioned, this one has a Dana 44 front and rear. It's a wider axle than the CJ5, and it has larger conventional drum brakes with standard adjusters. In the back it has a matching Dana 44, and the emergency brakes are in the drum on these, which is kind of nice. I haven't checked yet, but I believe this should have 538 gears. And let's just take a moment to take in that beautiful leaf pack. This had a GVWR of 5,000 pounds. The longer wheelbase FC 170 had a GVWR of 8,000 pounds and came from the factory with the 226 inline 6. This Jeep has worn hubs and 16-inch wheels. If you see the red poking through there and inside the fender wells, and if you look at it in the light, this was at a volunteer fire company at some point in its life, and possibly a Christmas tree farm later on. It's a little tough to see under here, and as we work on it, I'll give you some better views, but it is a Spicer 18 with a column shift style T93 speed. And this one you can see has a rear belt PTO on it with a cable actuated shift mechanism. So could have run many different things, but we'll try to maybe do something fun with that in the future. Might not be able to see it on here, but even the differential has red paint on it, so it would have been cool to see this back when it was an actual fire truck. It came with a very large and unique plow frame setup. I will be removing that. Off-roading won't be too good with that hanging down, plus it's really hard to get underneath it to work, so all the plow stuff is going to come off. Up front, in this very unique and slightly homely grill, it's a face only a mother could love, but I like them. It has this pretty nice plow lift setup, and it came with the power angle plow that's in good shape, so we'll pop that off though. I don't really need that for where we're at right now. I know you're dying to see inside, so let's go. As with any old Jeep from Pennsylvania, rust is an issue, and the FCs were very problematic in that area. So we've got a lot of work to do, but it runs and drives and is somewhat solid. So here's the strange controls. So you sit here, the engine is under that doghouse, and you're sitting directly over the front axle, and the controls are forward of that. So it has this very sloppy shifter, so that's for the 3-speed, and then the T90 has a single stick conversion, and that actually feels really good. It shifts nice, and I think we'll be just fine. It has a pretty big and retro looking heater, which also works, so I'm excited about that. And only has room for 2. Little bit of tool storage behind the seat, as well as large rust holes, but the majority of the cab is pretty solid, and I think we'll be able to save it. First impression sitting in here, for me being a tall person, it's actually really comfortable compared to a CJ. The steering wheel to stomach space is much better, and I have a lot of foot room, even more in the passenger area, so rather comfortable, and all this glass really gives you nice visibility. Plus you can, if you were plowing or off-roading, you're looking right at the ground in front of you, so it's kind of cool. You'll notice a CJ5 style speedometer with bird poop on it, and it must be from when this was a fire truck. There were a bunch of holes under there they covered, and then the master cylinder is actually right in there, so every one of these I've seen is hacked up. They came with a very small hole from the factory, so we're going to fix the dash eventually, and this is not something I would do. This Jeep was not owned by a mechanic, that's for sure. On the passenger side, when you flip up the seat, there's a battery box and some more storage down there and more rust holes. So the VIN tag on these is right next to the passenger seat. And the little engine is right in here. So this has little rubber, like kind of boat style hood latches. There's 4 of them, and this whole doghouse comes out because I did have to work on it a little bit to get it running right when I got it, and we still have lots of work to do. This is supposed to be insulated, and it's not terribly loud once this is on, but without this it's very loud and very hot. So it's supposed to, there's kind of a tunnel from the radiator, which is, it's weird, the radiator is like way up here, then a little tunnel ram through here, and then a grate out the back of the cab to kind of keep the air moving. And I'll show you when I work on it, but the fan is on a jack shaft, meaning the pulley's here, and there's a long shaft, and then the fan is up here. So it's very, very unique way to solve a lot of issues that they had when they built these. Let's fire it up, and we'll go for a ride around the yard. So it's a regular T90 shift pattern. It just feels a little weird with this. It's got all the bushings and linkages, which are gonna need a lot of work. It doesn't shift very well. So I'm in low range right there. This is be the factory gearing, which is a terrible crawl ratio that all the stock Willys Jeeps have. So it's just weird. I'm pretty tall and have pretty long arms, and I can barely reach the back of the steering wheel without leaning forward. So it's nice for once to have a little bit of space. But it's definitely going to need a knob on this steering wheel. Steering effort is actually really nice. It steers smooth and easy, and it has a much better turning radius than my CJ does. So it feels, looks, and smells like an old Jeep. I think in the winter this thing will be really nice for doing Jeep rides. We get the cab sealed up and get that heater running good. I think it'll be pretty nice. The clutch feels the same as the CJ. And then so reverse is like a sloppy slam forward. Sloppy slam. If you've driven a Jeep with one hand, you know this is pretty impressive. I have absolutely no brakes right now. That's why I'm just going slow and low range. So there you have it. That's a little tour of the new project. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. I don't know what I'm doing with it yet, but I've always wanted one of these, and now I got one. And it's got plenty of problems, but I see some potential. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for updates.